Yeah. Yes, so we say this is an e-learning, and that's why when Moni said she has not attended an e-learning or she has not taken an e-learning course before, I was still
Sorry,
coming
you
to
need
that
to recap small because we missed a lot.
Don't worry, at least for the benefit of those that have joined the session, I'll do a recap later. Yeah. So that's why when Moni said that she has not attended an e-learning course before, for the fact that you have been attending this OLXD webinar session, you've taken e-learning courses. And that's where this definition we also shed more light to. So asynchronous learning, take away the if for now. Asynchronous learning is that kind of learning where the facilitator and the learners are available in real time. Means that as I am now, I am seated in this room and you are wherever you are taking this course. That means we are right together in real time. Now, all physical training sessions are synchronous learning because your facilitator, not all now, most of them are synchronous because the facilitator is in class and you are also in class. So it can only happen when you are both present in real time. A webinar is a form of synchronous e-learning because I'm here, I'm not with you, you are there, and we are all learning via a digital platform. You are taking your course from your computer or from your phone. So whatever makes us available in real time is synchronous. And then if that learning is now being acquired or done over a digital device, then it is a synchronous e-learning. And examples are the live webinars, the live podcasts, the Instagram live sessions that people do, the LinkedIn live sessions that people do. And then we go to the asynchronous learning. And oftentimes, this is the one people refer to as e-learning. So when you have a course that is playing and the facilitator is not there. So that's the one we call the asynchronous. In a case where the facilitators and the learners are not available in real time, but learning still happens. So if you go to a Coursera, for example, you take your course, the facilitator is probably sleeping, or so in some of cases, the facilitator is doing something else, and you're taking the course. You've referred to that as e-learning, but that is just a type of e-learning, which is the asynchronous learning. And I said not all classroom program or not all physical programs now are synchronous learning. Because if I take a book and I'm reading, the person that wrote the book is not there, but I'm learning from the book. So it is also a form of asynchronous learning, but in that case, it is now physical. So I hope this gives a bit more clarity to the types of e-learning courses. And it's important we know this because when organizations come and they say, we want to go e-learning, oftentimes what we think of are the expensive versions of e-learning, which is the asynchronous. You start looking at, we need to get an LMS, we need to do this and the likes. And that is not how it should be. As long as it is delivered over a digital device, then it can also pass as e-learning. And by the time you look at all the features of e-learning, it's where you say you don't need to move from your house to the class. You are wherever you are, and I'm here, and we are taking the course. One of the advantages we used to sell then to organizations, especially when the Go Green was popular, is that because people don't move from one place to another, there's no emission of carbon monoxide, which also supports the Go Green mission. So those are some of the advantages of e-learning that you can say. And as it is now, everybody is where we are and we are learning. So this is also a form of e-learning. I remember back then in Diamond Bank, one of the things we did then, even though there was an LMS, was to change all our courses, all the induction sessions, and we started deploying them via Teams and Zoom. And that was one of the quick wins to penetrating into e-learning because people don't, and if you plan classroom training often, you will know that you spend so much money in logistics and planning than even the actual training itself. And with the leveraging on various technology like Zoom and the like, you cut all those things. You are not paying for the venue, you are not paying for feeding and the likes, and it helps you save costs. So when you are discussing e-learning, your first thing to discuss is what tools do we even have readily available that can make us exchange this knowledge over a digital platform. Some people use Zoom, some people use WhatsApp, I remember having a conversation with some guys conducting a research for NHS UK. And he just wanted to know how a lot of learnings are being done in Nigeria. And I said, see, even in Nigeria as we are now, some people facilitate sessions over WhatsApp. The different WhatsApp group you are in, that somebody is dropping a message and you are reading and responding and all, that is a form of e-learning because it is over a digital platform. So I hope this clarifies the different types of e-learning, and I hope we kind of like understand the asynchronous and synchronous learning. Please confirm if we are good to go. And if you have any questions before I move to the next slide, please let me know. Any question? Any feedback? Awesome. Awesome. Thank you. So now that we understand the two different types of e-learning that there are, the next bit we'll be going to, and because of time, is to go into the e-learning course development process and the stakeholders. Now, by the process, these are some of the things you do to develop your e-learning course. And then the stakeholders, while we talk about the processes, I'll also be discussing the people that are responsible for this process. But before we even start developing courses, now there are a lot of things that go into consideration, a lot of pre-development, pre-course development, pre-e-learning course design development that go on before we even get to this phase. And that's where you do your analysis. So you try to verify that training is even what is required. Now, after you verify that training is what is required, you try to understand that, okay, we have the resources to even deploy e-learning. Now, what are the resources you need to deploy e-learning? Because you cannot go ahead to say you want to onboard an e-learning course without having where you are going to house it. And that's where the conversation of LMS come in, or LXP, or any content management platform. Where are we going to store these courses? And the decision on the platform to store the course, and why this is really important is because I remember developing some courses for an organization a while back, I think back in 2017. Most times when people come to me to say we want to develop an e-learning course, the first question I ask is, do you have a platform? Now, people tend to get carried away by the buzz of, oh yes, we want to do e-learning, we want to gamify. Gamify is the reigning term now. We want to gamify our courses. We want to see cartoons. We want to be able to do this today. I said, yes, that's fine, but do you have a platform to put it? And they said, well, we are currently developing the platform, which is okay if you are truly developing a platform. Now, I haven't invested so much in developing the course, getting content, and then creating the interactive e-learning course. It now happens that they've not, or they could not even have the platform. So the courses were sitting in a folder somewhere and nobody was taking it. So before you even start your e-learning course development journey, you need to have that platform ready. And again, your platform does not necessarily need to be an LMS. And why that is so is because the reason why people get an LMS, which is a learning management system, is because they want to be able to track participation on the course. With an LMS, you're able to, as an admin, you log to the backend, you're able to see the courses, you're able to see completion rates, you're able to spool reports in case you want to do management reports and the likes. That's the advantage of an LMS. But then if you just want people to take the course without necessarily monitoring, because again, there are manual ways to doing these things. If I deploy a course, for example, a proof of you completing the course is probably finishing an assessment or passing an assessment. And for me to deploy an assessment, I can deploy assessment using Google Forms or Office Forms, as the case may be. So if I put my video course in a folder and I put my assessment in Google Forms, once you finish the course, you are asked to finish that assessment. With that assessment, once you complete it, I can track that one to be sure that you've actually taken the course. So, and these are different ways of looking for cheaper alternatives to taking advantage of e-learning, basically. And for e-learning, again, whilst most of us are used to the gamified themes, which is where you're having courses that are interactive that you can drag and drop, for those in organizations that have e-learning courses, those are some of the courses you will see there. For the likes of Coursera and Udemy, the courses are video-based. And that's to let you know that your e-learning course is not one directional. Your e-learning course can either be video. Some of the e-learning courses are even text-based. And I'll demo one of Articulate tools called Articulate Rise, which basically creates a lightweight text-based content for you to just go through. If you've seen a sample of Quantic University's and online university, Quantic University's courses, the program, they are mostly text-based, and then you have bits of assessment in between and all. So why I'm saying this is when you're thinking of e-learning courses, you need to think wide. In what format can these courses be that we can have them on a digital platform? It could be video, it could be audio, it could be text, and then it could be interactive e-learning courses. Most times when people discuss e-learning in organizations, they always go to the interactive bit, which is where you now require a lot of skills. But when you are creating the video bit, I know I've had engagement with people that want to go e-learning, and I said, see, if you want to go e-learning, it's quite expensive, and I'm going to be sincere with you. The immediate fee of acquiring the LMS or developing the courses can be expensive. Why don't you just go the cheaper route first? Even use that one to test if people would even use the courses or take the courses. Then you can now start investing gradually. And some of the things I say is, see, some of these videos that we do, your fastation session, if you record this session and put it in an archive where people can access, you've started implementing e-learning. Because what that means is that you don't have to develop the course over and over. You don't have to facilitate the session over and over again. And people can easily access the content and take the course. So, and some of these things are things you put in consideration when you are developing the course, because you are going to first of all think of the format of the course. When you're thinking of format of the course, you are putting in consideration where the course is going to reside. For LMSs, for example, LMS takes different formats. And an example of some of the formats are SCORM, AICC, quite a number of them. I think there's one now that is reigning now. I don't know. I've forgotten the name. Well, I'm sure I'll remember before we end the session. Because when you are developing the content, you need to know the format, the LMS or whatever platform it is you are going to put the course will take, so that you develop that content in that format. And like I said, some of the other pre-activities that go into before you even start developing this content is where you engage with your people to know your objectives and to find out how you are even going to design the course. And that's why it was important for us to have sessions like the likes of Martin's sessions, Gabriel Balogun's sessions. If you didn't attend those sessions, I'll be sharing the YouTube link later today so that you can go and watch them. Where they talk about different course design processes. It helps you understand some of the things you put into consideration before you even start developing the content. So you know the time you need to put an animation, time you need to put an assessment, the time you need to put a question to trigger previous memories and all. Now, once you've gotten your approval to go ahead with your course development, that's you've seen that you have the platform, you've seen that you've already understood the format and all. Then you now start this process. And the first bit is the content development process. When you are developing your content is where you put all the resources required together. And most times, in often cases, this bit is always done by the subject matter expert in collaboration with the instructional design and sometimes with the e-learning developer. And in small organizations, the instructional design often doubles as an e-learning developer. So that's just one stone to kill two birds. But when you are developing your content is where you bring all the things we want to teach the people. So you've already known the platform, you already know the mode. You see that it's going to be a live session like this, or it is going to be an asynchronous learning, which is probably a video or an interactive e-learning course. Now, when we start working with the instructional designer and the SME will come and say, this is the content I want to give. So for example, an organization can come to you and say, if you're an e-learning developer, an organization can come to you and say, please, I hope I'm not talking too fast. I know I used to get that feedback. Please, if I'm talking too fast, let me know. Are we good to go?
Yes, we're good to go. You're not talking too fast.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay, great. So an organization can come and say, we want you to digitize this, our policy. And that's what they will give you. Now, it's now the work of your instructional design and e-learning developer to say, okay, how are we going to make this policy interesting for people to take the course? And I've seen a whole lot of policies. And I think one of the policies that stood out to me, one of the courses that stood out to me was the policy from AXA. And it's quite interesting because it's long, but then you are going to get fascinated so that you want to finish it. And one thing they did with their course is that they converted the whole content itself. You know, your policies is always like, don't come late to work, don't discuss confidential things outside, this and that. One of the things they did was they created a story around it. And they started with a character. He woke up in the morning. So you are the character. You wake up in the morning, you go out to get a coffee. Whilst you are drinking your coffee, you received a call from a colleague. And the colleague was asking for a customer information. Then they pause. Should you respond? That way, if you click yes, a pop-up comes up to say, okay, you shouldn't respond because you're in a public space. And those are some of the things that an instructional designer and an e-learning developer will think through to say, okay, how are we going to put these things together? And that's what happened in the content development phase. So we are getting the content, and then we are trying to understand how we are going to arrange the content, what we are going to put in place. The instructional designer will tell the SME that, okay, so in this place, can you help us paint a scenario or a real life scenario that will help people understand this? Because as an instructional designer, you probably don't even understand some of these things. An instructional designer might have to even develop, or an e-learning developer might have to develop courses for the legal function, which they have little or no understanding about. So it's how well you engage the SMEs to elicit those contents that would be very, very effective that matter. So you read something, even you as a developer, if you don't understand it, then you ask the content, the SMEs, can we put a scenario here? So how do you know that this person is doing this thing right? Can we use a local content or a local illustration here for people to understand? And that's what happens in the whole content development phase. Now, once we have that content, again, one of the things we do in the content development phase is we try to also divide the courses into modules. Because recently I received the content of up to a 4 hours video. And I'm like, we cannot put this video on the element. It's not even going to work. Because who is going to sit down 4 hours because by the time I even open the course and I see 4 hours, I'm already demoralized to even start the course. So what we try to do is we try to break the courses into modules or topics or subject areas that people can consume. So once we do that, we've already put our scenario, we put our case study, we put our knowledge check, and then we have our content. So the next bit is now to go into storyboarding. Now, I don't know so before I even go to that example, for me, I refer to storyboard as a plan for a building. Now, if before you build a house, the architect will draw the plan to say, okay, this is where the toilet will be. When you come in, this is where the bathroom will be. When you come, this is where the sitting room will be. And with that plan, the builders will now build the house to meet that exact specification. And that's what a storyboard is about. It's like a movie script that says, okay, on this slide, this is the slide title. This is what, somewhat like a framework. Yeah, you can call it a framework too. It's on this slide, this is what the facilitator would say. And for live sessions, the way you do your storyboard, because yes, people actually do storyboards for live sessions like this. The way you do your storyboard for live session is different from the things you put into your storyboard for asynchronous sessions. Because for live session, your storyboard is more like your agenda. So you are saying 10 a.m. to 10:05, you play jazz music. Why do you play jazz music? Just so that people are relaxed as they are coming in and they know that something is about to happen. If at that 10 a.m. to 10:05, I just open a screen or there's nothing and everywhere is quiet, people will start waiting that, okay, what's going on? Have we even started the session? Is the network good or not? Then you say 10:05 to 10:10. Icebreaker. You drop a joke, you try to engage people. What do you want to learn today? This and that. And then 10:05 to another time. So those are the kind of things that people put in their storyboard for live session. And then you have pools, quizzes, and the likes. For live sessions, you also need to understand the tool you are going to use. Because again, Zoom is different from WebEx. As a matter of fact, this morning, I just realized some of the features that Zoom has now, and I'm really amazed. And I was just telling myself that I think I need to start facilitating more to even get a grasp of all these features I'm seeing in front of me. But yeah, so all these things are things you put into question. You see, if you can have Zoom that does not have a pool. Now, if you do pool in your session and there is no pool on the application, then you are going to have to scrap that pool and then jump, and then it might also disrupt all your plan. So you need to have an understanding of the two while you are doing your storyboard. Now, for e-learning, for asynchronous course storyboard, I think I put a template here. So this is like a basic storyboard layout. For the virtual live session, this is somewhat like what your storyboard will look like. Your slide title, this is the slide title, this is what we'll do there, this is what we'll discuss. But for your asynchronous session, this is the basic view of how your storyboard will look like. And reason being that for asynchronous session, whether it is a video that somebody is recording or it is going to be an interactive e-learning course, all these things need to be in play. You are going to have your slide title and slide number, which the first title can be introduction. And then the voiceover is what, so for some of them, and that's taking out the likes of Coursera and Udemy where you see the person. I'm still going to talk about how that can fit into display. For the other asynchronous courses where you only see animation and then the likes, there's a voiceover behind it. So what the voiceover will read is what you are going to have on this section. And then there's something we call the on-screen text, OST. On-screen text is, and when we talk about the principles of e-learning design, we understand why the on-screen text is not always the same as the voiceover. The on-screen text are pointers, or let me call it text that you see on the screen whilst the voiceover is going on. So, for example, the voiceover can be, "Hello there, and welcome to this e-learning course of OLXD. This course aims to cover XYZ. Kindly input your name in the form on the screen and click start to proceed." That is a typical intro voiceover. Now on the screen, what you most likely see is just welcome, and you see a form on the screen that you type in your name and then you see the button. So those on-screen text are the things that are going to be here. And then you have your on-screen illustration and animation. Now, looking at this example I just gave, where I said, welcome to this OLXD e-learning session. The illustration that you can see might be the OLXD logo. And then animation might be the logo will fly in from the right. So these are some of the things that you put in your storyboard. And you do that for every slide you are doing in your course. Such that, because like I think was it Esther that said during our session, sometimes the person who develop the content is not the person who facilitates the session. It happens in e-learning too. Sometimes the person who developed the storyboard is not the person who is going to actually digitize the e-learning course. So the essence of the storyboard is for us to have, like, when you see the storyboard, you already have an idea of how the course will be like, such that if I now hand it to somebody who is going to be an e-learning developer, the person can pick that storyboard and then create exactly what I pictured my storyboard to be. And that's basically the process of storyboard. Now, you remember that we already have the content, and then the voiceover, because the way you facilitate or the way you write the voiceover for e-learning course is not going to be like the textbook approach. And we'll also discuss it when we talk about some of the principles. It's not going to be like the textbook approach. Maybe the textbook, or like I was explaining with the policy, is do not smoke in the office. I would not put that directly like that as a voiceover. I'll probably come with another narration that is somewhat informal, so that it seems like I'm talking to you directly. Oftentimes, when you write your storyboard voiceovers, they are always in the first person singular. So you are talking to the person taking the course at that particular time. You are saying, welcome to this e-learning course. Enter your name. I'm not making it in a third person or second person singular. I'm talking to that person directly. And those are some of the things you put into consideration when you are doing your storyboard for the e-learning course development. So oftentimes when e-learning developers are talking, and the process is, once you have your content, the content needs to be approved before the storyboard is done. Once the storyboard is done, it's good for the storyboard to be approved before the content is digitized. And why it is important for the storyboard to be approved is because it is what is in the storyboard that ends up coming up in the content. So it reduces the level of back and forth in the whole course process. Because if I'm developing a course for, I think we have a UBA on the call. If you are developing a course for UBA, for example, and okay, don't let me use UBA. Let me use an Islamic bank, for example, and they are talking about savings. And in my storyboard, we have already put, maybe we're talking about types of savings. And the illustration, I put a piggy bank, an illustration of a piggy bank. Now, we all know that a pig it doesn't go with the Islamic religion. From there, whilst they are looking at the storyboard, they are already telling me that no, you remove that piggy bank illustration, use something else. So with that, it already saves me time of having to digitize course, and then you're not asking me to go and start removing things. And sometimes I might put an illustration like a fair lady or a white lady in a corporate gown. Maybe an organization that wants to portray a semi-formal look and feel. They'll tell me that no, let that person be putting on jeans and t-shirt or something informal, at least corporate casual. And that way, with all those changes, it has reduced the things that I would need to go back to when we are at the final stage. So once we finish the storyboard, it's now where we go into the voiceover recording, the multimedia and interaction design. Remember I said we have voiceovers for e-learning courses, and sometimes to save costs, some people use computer-generated voices. Now, the thing about computer-generated voices, so these computer-generated voices are applications that you use, that they are called text-to-speech applications. And an example is Balaboka. So I'm dropping the name Balaboka. Yes, the name sounds funny. It's a free tool that you can use for text-to-speech. And I think there are sometimes you can even download almost human-like voices that you can use. But the challenge is that when you are listening to a computer-generated voice, it does not excite you to even continue the course. That's why I personally use voiceover artists. Excuse me. And I have a good number of them that I reach out to when I want to do courses. So what does the voiceover record? For the courses that are not video-based now is where it's not me talking in the session like the Coursera. That it's for the courses that are animation-based. The voice that will be sounding in the background is the voiceover artist's voice. And what the voiceover artist read is whatever you put in the voiceover here. So the content you've written out here in your voiceover script is what you export and give to your voiceover artist to read out, such that when the voiceover artist reads it out, you have it. And then when you now start creating your multimedia interactions, you embed the voiceover. And if time permits, I'll show us how some of these things work in articulate storyline. Again, remember I said that your e-learning course can be full video and some can be interactive e-learning courses. For full video, you don't necessarily need to use applications like articulate storyline, because articulate is basically for interactive design. For video, there are other tools you use, and we'll discuss. I think I put a number of tools later in the slides. So you have your voiceover done. Your interaction and multimedia design is based on what you have written in your storyboard. So you are saying, let this thing fly in from the right, let the text on screen appear in this format and all. This is what we are now going to put into our course and try to make it happen. And then we now sync the voiceover into it. So once we sync the voiceover, then we publish. So you have some applications allow you to create assessments. Articulate, for example, allows you to create assessment. So if it's a full video-based course, you cannot create assessments with those ones. And that's why for the likes of Coursera, the assessment is not in that video that you watch. If there's an assessment, it's going to be another module where you will be able to take some tests. For the interactive e-learning courses, you're able to put assessment that you click, you submit, and you see your results straight. Now, once you've done this bit, then you go into your testing and approval. Now, some of the things you do in your testing is you deploy it on the platform that you aim to put it out, because you want to see if it will work on that platform, if it's compatible with that platform. And the other thing you're also doing with your testing and quality assurance is that you want your clients or the business or people, whoever is going to approve it, to have a feel of what the course is like, so that they give you feedback on some of the things that you need to do. And if you remember, some of the stakeholders I've mentioned here, from the beginning, we have your SMEs, and then you have your instructional designer. In this space, you have your instructional designer and your content e-learning developer. Like I said, in some cases, the instructional designer doubles as your e-learning developer. But yeah, so both of them work on the storyboard because the instructional designer should have a basic knowledge of the tool. But with the help of the e-learning developer, if the instructional designer is saying, this illustration should work, the e-learning developer is telling the person that this thing cannot work. It can fly in, but it cannot work. So with the two of them coming to an agreement, they're able to develop something that works with the authoring tool or development tool they are working with. Here is where you have just the e-learning developer. And if it's the ID doubling as an e-learning developer, you have the person here. And the e-learning developer can be depending on whatever output you are looking out for. It can be a movie, Balaboka, yes, thank you, Awele. It can be a movie producer because for the likes of your Coursera courses, the people who make those courses, apart from the instructional designer who has come up with how the course content and structure should be, it is the cinematographer that is carrying the camera and then recording and then creating, and then you have an animator who also puts one or two animations in place. Now, for others, if you are using Articulate, for example, it's going to be an e-learning developer who understands how to use Articulate. For podcast, you just need somebody who knows, a sound engineer who can manage the sound system and make sure that the audio is coming out very well. So depending on whatever format it is, and that's why the format is very important, and format is dependent on the output or the platform you are going to use. Depending on whatever format you are going to use, it will determine who is going to manage this rate. Could be the e-learning developer, could be the cinematographer, could be a sound engineer, depending on wherever it is. Excuse me. And then here you have testing and approval. This is where you have the project owners, the business, the clients, the users of the system, and also whoever manages the platform. Now, because except you as a developer, you understand how to manage the platform. In some organizations, we have specific people who are LMS administrators. So after the SME develop the content, they pass it to the developer develop the content, the developer hands it to the LMS administrator, who then uploads the course on the LMS with the right settings and then assign it to the respective people. For the case of testing, the administrator, and that's the case of LMS. Now, if it's going to be in a podcast platform or maybe you are using a shared drive, there's always somebody who manages it, who does not necessarily need to be any of the previous people that we've mentioned. Now, this person is one who knows how to upload it, put the right settings in place. For testing case, you might restrict the access to just few people so that they test it. And then once the review and updates are being done, you put the final one and then you deploy it and then you go live. Now, one of the things Articulate have also done is that they've created a review platform. And it's a great relief because back then when we used to use Articulate, I know when we've worked on a number of projects, well, I think one of the projects we worked on there was First Bank. When we did that project, that's as far back as 2012, 2013, the way we reviewed the courses then was that once we develop a module, we publish it, our internal project manager reviews it to do his own internal QA, he gives his comments, we go back to the content, we open it, and he gives his comment in a notepad. He sends the notepad or email to us. We go back to the content, we update it, and then send it back and forth. And then once we are finished, we publish it again, send it via email to our clients. And what happens is sometimes when you send zip folders to clients, they cannot open it. So sometimes we have to create an internal cloud storage where you can deploy the content and then send it to them. They review it, send email. So the stress was much in terms of reviewing. Then they came with Articulate Review. So for Articulate users, and I'll probably demo how that works too. What that does is from your Articulate interface itself, you are able to upload the course into Articulate Review, where the person can also have access to and put comment directly on that platform. And you get notifications in real time. So you can make all those changes or even chat on the platform to maybe make some clarifications and the likes. So once you are done with your testing approval and you are good to go, then that's when you launch it. And depending on whatever platform is App Store. Balaboka is a desktop application. It's not a mobile app. So you find it, just Google it on your desktop. So yes, so once you are done with the testing, then you go into the launch phase. And that's where you finish the course is looking fine. In your course development bit for organizations, some organizations like it to carry their brand. So whilst you are developing, you also need to put into consideration of your organization brand. Now, if anyone is developing a custom e-learning course for you, it's your right to request that they make the course carry your brand. And most times what happens is organizations tend to share their brand guide with their vendors so that they know the color codes, they know the font to use and all the tone of voice to use, so that when people take the course, they are unable to differentiate, they are unable to tell that the course was done in-house. So once you are okay with that, then you launch on whatever platform you want to put it on. If it's an LMS, you give the LMS administrator to publish it and then assign it. Now, again, once you are launching courses, if you are not using an LMS where you are for tracking and no, if it's a video, you upload it somewhere and then people can have access to it. You probably will not be able to track their completion rates. If you are using an LMS, then you can put a lot of settings in place to track completion rates, to even set completion rates. Some LMS also offer automatic certificates. So once you are done with the course, you get your certificate. Some LMS allow you to put restriction. So you as an admin, you'll be the one assigning the course. And in some cases, they open it where people can enroll for the courses their own. For organizations that are looking to drive the culture of learning, what they do is that they make the courses available to everybody, so that, especially when they are not confidential courses, so that when people go to the platform, they can take as many courses they want, because the more knowledgeable people are, the more effective or the more active or the higher their performance on the jobs. And it's even easy for people to switch roles and for secondment and succession planning and all. So that's basically the process of e-learning development in theory. Do we have any questions? Any question? Are we lost? Anyone? Can anyone hear me? Because I'm not seeing any response.
Yeah, very well.
Okay, awesome. So do we have any questions so far? Any question? If you, maybe something about the e-learning process that you'd want me to run over again? No questions.
Yeah,
okay.
Maybe my question would be around storyboarding. Okay. Because in the past I was trying to, what you displayed, yes, similar to, I wish I could share something that I have also, because there was a time I was trying to develop a course, an online course using this, but at a point I was lost. So I understand this storyboarding very well, but one thing is that at what point are you going to decide? So take, for example, I'm trying to illustrate something and I don't want to use text. I want to use basically, because again, they will say that reduce as much text as possible. Looking at that, like that LinkedIn type. So at what point do you suggest that we use either image or animation? Yes, text shouldn't be a problem, but image or animation in order to reduce the amount of content. I don't know if you understand what I'm saying.
Yes.
When you are, yeah.
Yes, I do. So when you are doing your storyboard for courses, one of the principles, and I think I'll talk about it when we go into the principle. It's 11 o'clock already, and we've not even got into half of the slides. So one of the things about one of the principles of e-learning course design is that you try to use more illustrations over text because people tend to get your message faster when you use illustration. Imagine if Google Map was just text-based, turn right, stay right by default, and your fourth exit, it's going to be difficult. So the things you use illustrations for, and sometimes I'm sure one of the struggle is that finding the right illustrations for some things. There are sometimes that some things don't have illustrations. There are some things that you look and be like, what can I use to illustrate it? But a bit, and what for me, one of the things that has helped me, and most time when I take this training is that I try to put myself in the shoes. One of the things that has helped me most times is that I tend to watch a lot of video jingles, a lot of animations, a lot of montage, a lot of cartoons. Well, I've talked about cartoons, but yes. So those things kind of like help, because you now realize that you see maybe like a whiteboard illustration, for example. You see a lot of story being said, and just one illustration is on the screen.
Exactly.
But you find it interesting. You still get it. And that means that you don't necessarily need to represent everything that your voiceover has. You just need to probably, in some cases, put an illustration that would cover for the entire voiceover. So what some people do, and sometimes is that, and these days, I realized recently, because my role has really taken me away from digitizing courses. What people do now is they try to get GIFs. GIFs are looping animations. So it might be somebody walking from left to right, all through, whilst that voiceover is being said. So that way, it's not as if somebody is just standing on the screen and people are wondering what's it going to do.
Exactly.
It's walking left to right, just looping left to right. It gives that activeness on the screen, and then with the voiceover, everything. So it looks as if you've done multiple animations, but it's just one GIF image you've put to cover for the entire speech that you put on the screen. So that's some of the tricks that you can consider. So don't try to represent everything with animation. Just look for something that can speak to everything. So you can be talking about housing, for example. Maybe when you are talking about housing, maybe housing infrastructure or no, you can just put a picture of one house. You put a picture of another house that will appear. You put a picture of another looking house, such that whilst we are talking about house generally, things that are appearing are just houses, and then it somewhat like covers for all the description that you are putting in place.
Okay. It's clear. It's clear. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Yeah, the slides will be available. So let me run through the principles of multimedia learning. And I'll just run through this briefly, because I've pretty much talked about it. And so because of time, and this is the challenge I have when I'm frustrated, I talk too much. So when people are designing, I was giving an illustration about the artist who understands some of these principles around the head ratio, what size should be, once the head is a particular size, how the neck should be, what the hand should be. And all these things are things that the person puts into consideration when he or she, or whatever gender is drawing. Now, for e-learning developers, a good number of people use this principle of multimedia learning. And the principle of multimedia learning was created by Professor Richard Mayer. I think he's the professor of psychology. And he came up with 12 principles that it's not like you must do it, but his recommendation that if we do it, you will get better results from learning. And the whole idea of this thing is to make learning very, very easy for people. And he based his theory on 3 assumptions. Now, the first assumption is that people learn via 2 channels, the eyes and the ear. It's an assumption he made. And then the other bit is the limited memory capacity, that people don't have that much storage capacity for them to put so many things in. So that means whatever it is you are doing, you must consider those 2 channels, and then you must also consider the capacity. And there's something called the working memory and the permanent memory. Now, if you go to the science of learning, you get to understand what the working memory and permanent memory is. The working memory, whatever it is you are doing now or learning, is from the working memory. When you do it over and over again that you've mastered, then it gets stored into the permanent memory. Permanent memory is where things that you did as far back as when you were a teenager or in primary school are being stored. That something will just trigger it, and it will come from the permanent memory to the working memory. So whatever it is we are learning now is going into the working memory. So because it has a limited capacity, what the principle is around that, make sure that things that you are giving, you are not bulking a lot of things into that memory. And then active processing. Whatever it is you are learning at a point in time, you are not just taking that in as a whole. You are taking that in, and your mind is already processing it with previous things you have learned to make sense out of it. So whilst it seems like you're assimilating something quick, there's a lot of processing going on in your mind, which is that as you hear something, if I'm talking about a car, for example, if I talk about a black Mercedes with red rims, as I said that, in your mind, if you've seen a similar car, you are immediately processing the event that happened when that car passed by you or when you had an incident with that car. And that means that a lot of things are happening whilst you are learning. So as much as possible, because you are doing a lot while you are learning, the whole principle around is saying that, see, you need to consider the channels, you need to consider the limited capacity, and you need to consider the amount of brain power these people would need to process their learning so that it will be easy for them to learn. So, and there's something, the principle also relies so much on what we call the load theory. Now, there are 3 load theories. I think the extraneous, I've forgotten the other 2, but the first one, the extraneous, is that the wasted energy, the wasted time and energy people use in processing things that are not relevant to what they are meant to learn. So, for example, you are taking a course, and they are talking about how to pump a tire. Ideally, what should be on the screen should be the pump at the tire. But then they now put a car in the background. They put somebody walking in the background. Those 2 things are not necessarily relevant to what you want to learn. But because you are looking at them and you are seeing them, your mind is also processing the car. If you've had incident with a similar car, your mind is picking that one. If you've seen somebody in that dress that the person that the illustration, the person they put in the background is wearing, your mind is also processing. So there are a lot of wasted energy on things that really don't matter to what you are learning. So then the next thing is the energy in processing what you are seeing now and recalling the previous incident, the active processing bit. And then the third load theory is now the amount of energy you need to actually process what you need to learn. So what this principle of multimedia design is trying to do is eliminate every form of stress that you would need or that you will be subjected to just to learn. And it came up with 12 principles, like I said. And these are the principles: the coherence principle, the signaling principle, redundancy principle, and a whole lot of them like this. And for me, I like starting with the multimedia, which is what we briefly talked about. And what is said with the multimedia principle is that where necessary, use illustrations. And with the example I gave, imagine Google Map telling you turn right, you can just read the text, turn right, turn left, by default, turn right. If not for Google Map, some of us will not even know what it means, what the third exit by the roundabout means. And if it was just text, we would not get it. So Google has seen that, yes, these people need illustration to be able to see what it is we are saying. And that's why Google Map has the illustration. So whilst you are reading it or you are hearing, you're also seeing what it means. And with that, it is easy. It makes it easy for you to learn what you need to know. And then the coherence principle is the one of where you have things that are not necessary on the screen. When you are developing your courses, try to make sure that it is only things that are necessary that are on the screen. If they are not necessary, take them out. And that's why sometimes, if you look at a Coursera or a LinkedIn Learning course, for example, when they want to put animation, you just see a solid background and then just the text, because they don't want you to be carried away by some of the things that would not be necessary to you, so that it should be easy for you to pick the right thing. And then the signaling principle basically says that, say, when you are mentioning something, when you are talking about something, when you are describing something, let there be pointers to those things that you are referencing so that people will know that this is what you are talking about. So like the Google Map illustration, if you are doing the direction, you are seeing where you are at a particular point in time. So you know where the left is, where the right is, where the fork is, and all, and it's already mapped it. And that's what signaling is about. And redundancy principle is saying, see, where you have your text and audio, that you shouldn't have the exact text on the screen as the audio. So imagine what I'm saying now, and you're having to be reading the subtitle at the same time. So, you know, people cannot read and listen at the same time. It's either you are reading or you are listening. You cannot really do both of them at the same time. So what is to say that don't give people that stress. Just focus on either audio. If it wants to be audio, you put there. Put just the audio. If it is just the text on the screen. Now, for accessibility, what people do now is that they allow people to either turn on or turn off each of them. So if a deaf person wants to take a course, they can turn, they definitely they will not hear. So they will just turn on the subtitle and they can read. If a blind person is taking the course, they will not see the animation and all, but they can hear. So those are the only situations where you tend to put both of them, but then you put giving people the possibility of minimizing and turning some of them on. And then the spatial contiguity and then the temporal contiguity. For me, it's somewhat the same thing. The spatial contiguity is saying that, okay, I think I have illustrations here too. Anyways, coherence, remove. Yeah, the spatial contiguity is this signal. Spatial contiguity is saying that, see, things that are closely related, and I think I'll put a link to where I got this illustration so that you can always read it. Things that are closely related, put them together, because when the eyes are reading something, they don't first of all read this one and then go to one corner to start tying the similarity. But by the time you put it together, people are able to tell that they are the same thing. And it's somewhat similar to what the signaling principle says. And that's why sometimes for me, I used to call the signaling principle, the spatial contiguity, and this temporal contiguity, I refer to them as somewhat the same thing, because what they are saying is, at the moment something is happening, let there be pointers that this thing is happening. So what this temporal contiguity is also saying is that some guys want to see all the text on the screen. That's the problem, and that's why we are there to let them know. And there are a lot of science about it, because if we look at and I'll do some illustrations maybe later, if we look at the eyes and the ear, you remember the assumptions that there are two channels that we are learning from. You don't want to load the two channels too much. You want to you want there to be a balance so that you are reducing the stress of the learner so that learning can occur. And I'm sure you are saying that there are a lot of science around course development. It's not just I want to put image on the screen, I want to put text on the screen, I want to make it funky. You need to really understand learning science to make sure that once you are developing a course, it makes it easy for the learners to even understand and appreciate. If I'm going through stress to learn a course, I will not even finish it. And that's why some people would take a course like 4 or 5 times before they even understand it, because it's a lot of stress. People are already going through a lot. You now want to even stress them with your content. So the temporal contiguity is saying that when there should be things should be occurring at the same time. You know, it's similar to that spatial contiguity where we said they should be close to each other. So if a voiceover is saying that to use a pump, you need to first of all pull the handle. There should be an illustration that shows the handle and it being pulled so that I understand that this is what the instruction is saying. Remember, I said it's similar to that signaling principle. And then the segmenting principle is an area where we talk about content chunking and then breaking them into bits. Remember when I talked about the content development step, and I said it is at that step that we tend to first of all break them into bits and then break them into modules. And that's basically what this segment is saying. That segmenting principle, that break your courses into bits so that people can consume one at a time. And let there be distinction that, okay, this is the end of this section. We have moved to a new section. You know, sometimes when you hear that, okay, recap, at this point, you are saying, okay, good, let me stop here. Let me go and do something and come back and then continue on the next session. It gives people that freedom and that pleasure to learn. And it makes them have the feel that they have control over their learning. And then pre-training principle. Now, what this bit is saying is that because you want the learning to be seamless, try to give them some things that they can read ahead that will make that learning actually seamless. Some courses have glossary, because I don't know if anyone has taken finance courses before, you will know that those people have a lot of terminologies. Now, you can imagine taking a course that is talking about balance carried down or profit before tax, PBT. And I'm looking at like, what does this even mean? Because in my mind, I'm trying to process what that means. I'm already losing what they are discussing at the point in time. But if, for example, I have a glossary of text or glossary of words, or somebody has shared me a pre-reading material that exposes me to some of these big terminologies ahead, when I'm taking the course, it makes it easy for me to learn. So that's basically what this pre-training principle is about. And then modality principle. I think modality principle is, yes, modality principle is saying that, you know what, instead of having text on the screen, why don't you have voiceover? Use other modals of learning or passing knowledge on your course. Remember, I said that the only time you tend to use the two together is when you are creating course for accessibility purposes. So that's what modality is saying, that use audio instead of full text on the screen. Nobody wants to sit down and read all through. In some cases now, if you look at the lightweight content, and those content are basically all text and little or no audio. So they are using different alternatives as against putting the two of them together for the purpose of learning. And then the personalization principle. Personalization principle is what you put in place when you are writing your voiceovers. Remember I said that when you get a policy, you need to rewrite it in such a way that it's interactive and personalized. So you are talking in the first person singular. You are saying, welcome to this course. At the end of this course, you will be able to. So you are talking directly to this person. And you are not meant to use all formal text because you want the person to enjoy and appreciate the course. So you use text languages that are informal, corporate formal, and just to make it give a seamless and enjoyable environment. If you are in a physical training, you are not going to speak Queen's English all through. There are sometimes that you say, oh, it was hard though, just to try to make the class interesting. And that's what they are trying to say in the personalization principle. And then the voice principle, remember when we talked about the voiceover, that we said, see, computer voice, they are cheap to use. Once you download Bala Boka is free, for example. Once you download it, you just put your text to speech, and then it gives you the audio. You can put the audio. But imagine listening to a computer voice for 15 minutes. At a point, you want to stop. It will be irritating at some point. And it will also affect your learning. You want them to use voices. You want to use voices that people can easily hear, people can understand, people can appreciate. And that's why it's best to use real human voice than computer voice. And this last one is still being argued because it's saying that people would learn better if you use illustration than when you put their facilitators video there. And I think if you look at the likes of the LinkedIn courses and co, they try to use a blend of both. You see them, you put the face and then they substitute it sometimes with animations and just to create that balance. But if, for example, you are only looking at my face all through, at a point you get tired, you want to stand up, you want to walk away. But if you are seeing different animations, different colors flying in here and there, you would appreciate it and you also want to learn. So those are basically the principles of e-learning. This is 11:18. So I don't know if you would want us to continue. I think we have the features, the tools, and then the Q&A. Do you want us to continue or should we proceed? And any questions so far? Okay, I didn't say continue. Don't worry, when you meet Gabriel, I'm sure you've met Gabriel. Okay, Taufik. So we should continue. Any questions so far? Any questions so far? Any questions on any of the principles? Okay, Sarah. Any questions on any of the principles? Should I proceed? If you want me to proceed, please just type good to go. Proceed, type good to go. Okay, yeah. Awesome, awesome. So the next bit is now some of the features of an effective e-learning. Now, if you are able to use or implement some of those principles, you are already indirectly applying or putting the features of an e-learning course in place, of an effective e-learning course in place. Because with your illustration, you're already making your course visually pleasing, and that is even enjoyable on its own. And structurally cohesive means that, see, I don't want to be following a topic and then I get on that topic. It does not tie to what I was learning before. There should be a connection. And when you are writing your script, you kind of like link the next module to the previous one. So you say things like, maybe at the end when you are recapping, you put things like, in the next module, we will learn X, Y, Z. And you see that a lot in your likes of your LinkedIn courses, because sometimes you probably wonder why are they doing it. It's just to link the next module to the previous one. So they say, you know what, in the next module, we'll be talking about this, and then that ends it there. So that way they've linked it. And when they are talking about in the next module, they try to pick points from the previous one. Like I've done today, I've picked points from Gabriel's point. I've picked point from Esther's session. And that's how your courses should be like, so that it doesn't seem like one module is just standing on its own. And your clear learning objectives. See, when people are learning, they want to know what you want them to learn, what they should be able to do. And that's why it's important that you let them know what the objectives are. In the beginning of the session, when I started the session, I talked about if you want to be an e-learning developer, this session will be good because you understand some of the things that you put in place. If you want to start onboarding e-learning courses, you will need this session because you will know the kind of conversation to start having with people. So those are the learning objectives, and they are clear. Now, if after this session, I now ask that if you want to engage an e-learning developer, do you have an idea of some questions you need to ask? And you say no. That means I've done a very bad job. Please don't say no, please. And you say no, that means I've done a very bad job. But if you say yes, at least now, if an e-learning developer comes to you, you can have conversations around storyboard, you have a conversation around a bit of LMS, a bit of course formats and all, which means that to an extent I've done a good job. I hope that's what you will say, which means I've done a good job. And then interactive elements. Now, some of the things that, and again, some of the reasons why people go for the likes of articulate these courses and gamified courses because of the interactive elements in them. And some of the things that this video-based courses, you have few interactions in video-based courses because the platforms don't even support those interactions and the courses are just designed for you to watch. But what they now try to do is that, one, they first of all make the courses, the modules really short. So a Coursera course is probably 10, 15, 20 minutes. You quickly watch it. And then they start referencing some other resources and then they give assignment for you to do. That's their own way of creating some level of interactions on the course. For the likes of articulate course, you can put a lot of click and drop, drag and drop, enter your name, animation, and not just for people to be interested all through the course. And focus and simplify your content. So as much as possible, remember I said we are breaking the course into smaller modules so that it will be easy for people to learn. And one of the things that the principle of e-learning is doing, those 12 principles, is try to make it as simple as possible and easy as possible for people to assimilate. So that's basically, once you're able to do that, you see that people will finish your course on time because they are learning it fast and it's not stressful to them. So if you want your course to be very effective, you also need to also make it focus and simplify content, avoid distraction. And then short and concise. There are some people that when they want to develop courses, so maybe they want to talk about, let me see. If some people want to talk about e-learning, for example, and then they will start with the history of e-learning, when e-learning started and was discovered in 1948 and the likes. You don't need those things to develop an e-learning course. You can read them for your own use, but if you are here for a course, what you want to know is what can I do? I don't need the history to go, because if I get to the job, I'm not going to use the history of when e-learning started. So that's why you need to remove everything, make it short and straight to the point, concise. This is what you need to do. This is how you need to do it. And these are some of the things, some of the features you need your e-learning course to have. And in terms of the course design, you can watch Gabriel Balogun's video as well as Martin's video on some of the instructional approach to see some of the elements you put in the courses themselves to make it effective and make the knowledge transferable. Yes, we have a lot of tools that we use for e-learning course development, a lot of them. And it's based on the different types of formats or forms of e-learning you are looking to design. For interactive e-learning courses, you should be considering tools like Articulate Storyline, Articulate Rise, Captivate, Lectora. Now, those applications they help you create interactive courses. Articulate Storyline and Articulate Rise are owned by one company called Articulate. Captivate and Lectora are different organizations, but they're all expensive. So you subscribe to them, but I think they all allow you to have a 30-day trial just for you to have a feel of how they work. If you are looking to create a video-based course, you are looking at the likes of Camtasia, you are looking at Beyond, you are looking at Adobe After Effects, you are looking at Premiere Pro. Those ones allow you to create video-based courses. Most people even use Camtasia for guides, how-to videos, because Camtasia allows you to record your screen. Articulate storyline also allows you to record your screen, but the one of the selling bits of Camtasia is that it allows you to record your screen. So most of those YouTube videos that you see that they show you how to use an application and all, they are mostly done with Camtasia, and you have free versions of those ones too. For Articulate storyline, the screen recording of Articulate storyline allows you produce 3 different formats of your video. Now, if I'm showing you how to open a document and I want to record it with Articulate storyline, the 3 options I can get from Articulate storyline is the view version where you would watch it. And then you have the practice version where it asks you to click the things that you've watched. And then you have the test version where it now evaluates how well you click those things and then give you a score. So if you remember some of the sessions that the likes of Gabriel and Martins had said, and I'm emphasizing on those two because they talk more about instructional design processes, is that you demonstrate, you show people, you allow them practice, and then you test them on it. So Articulate storyline video recording allows that. Audacity is a audio application. So if you have your voiceover and you want to clean, you want to do some things, you use Audacity. Now, Articulate also has an embedded audio editing feature, which time has gone, which let's see if we'll still demo it. But yes, that's basically what Audacity is for. Your Illustrator, Adobe Illustrator, Photoshop, Corel Draw are basically for graphics design. There are sometimes you need to edit some illustrations, you want to change color, you want to create some backgrounds and all. That's when you use all these applications. Yemi, I hear that, I see that you know how to use Corel Draw and Photoshop. So those are some of the things so you get some assets, you want to edit it and all, you use it. And so we have WebEx, Zoom. So for your live webinars, you use WebEx and Zoom. You can also use WebEx and Zoom to create this kind of video. So you don't necessarily need to have people there. You just sit down, you record your session, you do your presentation, you save it, and then you upload it on your platform for people to take. And then your MS PowerPoint. You also use the MS PowerPoint for the live session. If you want to create resource files, you can also use your MS PowerPoint. So these are some of the tools. There are a lot of them. And if you start getting into it the more, you start seeing some of those tools. But it's a good starting point. When someone says we want to develop, we develop e-learning. So yeah, what tool are you using? And they say, oh, they use Articulate storyline. Oh yeah, I remember Articulate storyline because I attended this session. So that's good. For me, I use Articulate storyline. I use Articulate Rise. I use Vyond. I use Photoshop. I use Corel Draw. I sometimes make edits with Adobe Premiere Pro and After Effects, and I use PowerPoint very well. So those are some of the tools I know how to use and I use from time to time. I have Articulate storyline license and Vyond, so I'll probably demo that shortly. Thank you for the session. Any questions?